are in an awkward position, the Supreme Lord has given some special facilities to them. So, by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is rewarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of them. Maharaj Parikshit, being the most learned and experienced king, by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Kali, because he did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. He protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali, and at that time he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaj Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name, and thus he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas also it is said that by discourse on Lord Krishna's activities one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam it is also said that by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali. And Maharaj Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the age of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite cult. Translation: Maharaj Parikshit was a realist like the bees who only accept the essence of the flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. So here we see that Maharaj Parikshit was true to his character, and he didn't in any way have envy or hatred towards the personality of Kali or the age of Kali, in spite of the fact that it is inauspicious and Kali Yuga is full of violence and quarrel and all the sinful activities which are counter to the rule of Parikshit. Still, he had no hatred. This, of course, is a reflection of Krishna. He also has no hatred of demons. Certainly he kills them, but he has no hatred of them at all. In fact, we see that when he kills a demon, they get liberated. Usually, and this is astonishing, when Krishna killed Aghasura, then it's described particularly there that Aghasura died and the Atma came out of the body and it waited there. And when Krishna came out of Aghasura, then merged into him. And everybody was astonished. The Devatas and the sages in the sky were looking, and they were very astonished by this. How can the demon who tried to kill Krishna get liberation? Because this is what the yogis and the gyanis strive for many lifetimes. It's very, very rare. And without any effort, in fact, by hatred, the demon got liberation. So this shows that the Lord doesn't really hate anybody at all. Of course, we could say in one sense that when you get Sayuja Mukti, it's not very good anyway. It's for the demons, it's not for the devotees. So. But anyway, the Gyanis treasure liberation. But when Krishna kills a demon, he gives them liberation. So there's no hatred. Of course, it's also explained by Rupa Goswami when he discusses the qualities of Krishna and Vishnu, etc. One of the qualities that distinguish Vishnu from Shiva is that when he kills a demon, the demon does not get an inauspicious result. It doesn't say get liberation or go to the spiritual world, as in the case of Krishna, but at least they don't go to hell. So that is a point is made that when Nrsimhadev kills Hiranyakasipu, he doesn't get moksha, he doesn't go to the spiritual world, but he gets born as Ravana and he gets to enjoy again. He doesn't go to hell also. He gets some good advantage. And when Rama kills Ravana, then again he is born and as Shishupala, and he gets some enjoyment in this world. So they get some advantage, and they don't have to go to lower species of life or go to hell or anything. So that's a usual case for demons when they get killed by other forms of the Lord. When Krishna kills a demon, then it's special. So even these qualities that distinguish Vishnu from Shiva and other living entities are more remarkable in Krishna. When he kills a demon, they get Sayuja Mukti, or they get a body in the spiritual world, even the demons. So that's one of the outstanding qualities of Krishna. In any case, whether it is Vishnu or Krishna, they don't hate the demons. They're doing this out of a duty to protect the devotees, and somehow even arrange advantage for the demons somehow or other. So this is the nature of the Supreme Lord. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I don't hate anyone, and nor do I favor anybody also. But then Krishna also says, I favor the devotees. So yes, for those who are more favorable, the Lord shows extra favor. But if the others are more demoniac and they hate the Lord doesn't hate them more. So he's either neutral or he's favorable and more favorable and most favorable. But he never hates anybody. Why? Because they're all jivas. They're all coming from the Supreme Lord. The Jiva Shakti is one of the Shaktis of the Lord. Like the internal energy and Prakriti, Maya Shakti. So Jiva Shakti is also coming from the Supreme Lord. They're all coming from him. They're under him. So he never hates any jiva, in spite of the fact that the jivas in the material world are bahirmukha, they're averse to the Lord, but he doesn't hate them. So he's neutral, and sometimes he shows them great mercy also, as in the case of the demons that he kills. So that's the quality of the Supreme Lord. He doesn't hate anybody. And the devotees also develop similar qualities. We have the example quoted in the Nectar of Devotion, I think comes from Hari Bhakti Sudodaya. And it says there that the wise man understands that people are like spatikas, crystals. You have a nice crystal, nice clear crystal. And if you put it near a red flower, it looks red. If you put it near a yellow flower, it looks yellow. So people, they tend to pick up the qualities of people that they associate with intimately. So if you associate with demons, you become a demon. You associate with devotees, you develop good qualities. So the devotees associate with devotees, and of course they associate with the Supreme Lord. They're always chanting the Lord's name, remembering the Lord, hearing about his pastimes. So then naturally, they will develop all the good qualities of Krishna. Of course, not all the qualities, but maximum they can. They'll develop all wonderful qualities. So the jivas can develop 50 qualities that Krishna has, or maybe even 55 if they're very exceptional. Of course, in small quantity because they're little jivas. But nevertheless, they can show these qualities. So therefore it is said one of the unique qualities of bhakti mentioned in the first chapter of Nectar of Devotion is subhadha. That the one who practices bhakti develops all good qualities, all wonderful qualities. So the devotee doesn't have to cultivate good qualities. In other words, we don't have to try to cultivate sattva gun apart from bhakti. We just do bhakti and then good qualities manifest. But the good qualities that manifest are not even sattvic qualities, because sattva binds you to the material world. So bhakti does not produce any material qualities, rather it produces spiritual qualities in the devotees. So one of those qualities is compassion. So the most merciful person is the Supreme Lord. That's one of his outstanding qualities. Most outstanding quality, we can say. Though the Supreme Lord, generally people think of him as most powerful entity, he is more attractive because of his mercy. because of his compassion, because of his affection, because of his kindness. Yeah? So it is often said that the primary quality of Krishna is bhaktavatsala. He is affectionate towards his devotees. His heart melts for his devotees. So apart from the devotees, the Lord is compassionate to all living entities also, but of course more compassionate to the devotees. So the devotee also becomes very compassionate towards all living entities, just like the Supreme Lord. So compassion is one of the qualities of the devotee, and it develops simultaneously with his devotion. It's not something we have to cultivate. In the material world, you cultivate good qualities in sattva guna. So you cultivate compassion and gentleness and humility and all these qualities, lack of pride, etc. But the devotee, by worshipping Krishna sincerely, then he develops all these wonderful qualities, including this compassion. So then the natural result of that is that the devotee becomes completely detached from things in the material world, and consequently gives up all anarthas, because all anarthas arise from our material attachment, our ignorance and whatever. So all these bad qualities like greed, lust, anger, intoxication, and pride, etc., will disappear by the cultivation of bhakti. So in other words, by cultivating a loving relationship with Krishna, we develop all good qualities like Krishna. We develop similar qualities. So that compassion is one of the major qualities, and that manifests within the devotees. So we see that it's from the very beginning of devotion, such qualities have to be there. And therefore, one of the, in Shikshashtaka, which we recite every morning, we say that you have to be humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and give respect to all others and not expect respect for oneself. So giving respect to all living entities means that we understand that all the jivas are the servants of the Supreme Lord. We don't look at the bodies, we don't even look at their sattva, rajas, tamasic qualities and all that. We see them all as jivas, and they're all related to the Supreme Lord. They're all family members, so to speak. So I'm a jiva, this person's a jiva, and we're all servants of the Supreme Lord. So in that sense, we're equal. At the same time, we see that the devotees also have to be a little bit discriminate, so they avoid the demons. They avoid these tamasic people, they avoid the sinful people, the asat people, the mayavadis, the atheists, whatever. They have to avoid them because you're trying to associate with Krishna. If you associate the opposite, the people that hate Krishna, then you lose your bhakti. So you got to associate, you have to choose your association in the material world as a devotee. So in that sense, what we call the madhyamadhikari, he must distinguish between the devotee and the demon. And he doesn't associate with the demons, he associates with the devotees. And he serves the devotees, and he serves Krishna. So he develops all wonderful qualities and compassion, etc. And he avoids the demons. But he doesn't hate the demons. Sometimes we get this attitude, the demons are rascals, or we start hating them and insulting them or whatever, but the devotee is actually neutral, that's all. He just doesn't associate with them, he understands the danger of associating with them. At the same time, he is not indifferent to them also. So therefore, if they suffer, he also feels that suffering. So we see in the material world now we have COVID virus, everybody affected, everybody dying, everybody confused. So the devotee is not indifferent to that. He should never be indifferent because they're also jivas, they're in a suffering condition. But we also have a little bit of a different viewpoint how to help them. How is our compassion expressed? So some people, okay, help them, cure them of their disease, etc. But that's just, say, a temporary phenomenon. We have to go deeper than that. Real compassion means let's get to the root of the problem and try to solve that, not just make a temporary solution like United Nations trying to make everybody all, friendly to each other. It doesn't work so well. So we have to get to the root of the problem eventually. Yeah? So the compassion of the devotee is to somehow lead everybody into Krishna consciousness, to make them into devotees. So we can't do that, at least make them a little favorable. At least if we can't do that, expose them a little bit to bhakti somehow or other. We can't preach to them. We can't preach to a demon because that's an offense, but at least we can make them a little favorable somehow or other, expose them to it. So that much we can do. And to others we can begin to preach. So that's how the devotee expresses his compassion. But that has to be there for all the living entities. So, and that's why Lord Chaitanya says, in order to chant nicely, continuously, kirtaniya sada, to chant continuously, then you have to have that respect. Give respect to all others. We have to respect all living entities to a certain degree. Yeah? Yeah? And not expect respect for ourselves. So the devotee develops this quality. So Parikshit Maharaj here, he had that quality. And he didn't hate Kali. So Kali is the personification of all the bad qualities. all the things that destroy civilization, that destroy dharma, that are unfavorable for bhakti. All those things are, that's what Kali is. But he didn't hate Kali Yuga. He didn't hate the personification of Kali. He didn't hate all the people who were so fallen. Because they're all jivas. And he understood the nature of Kali Yuga. It was the will of the Lord that in Kali Yuga that this would be the nature of the people. So how can he resist the Lord? This is a period of time. He could not stop time. So he accepted it. But as Prabhupada points out in the purport, he understood what's the real solution to the problem. So in the verse it says something very interesting. He understood perfectly well that auspicious things produce good effects immediately, even if you don't do them. You just think of them. And inauspicious things, sinful things, don't give any effect unless you actually perform them. So in other words, there is a little advantage here in Kali Yuga that you have to actually do something to get the bad effect, which means if you think of a sinful activity, you don't get any karma. If you do the sinful activity, then you get karma. Whereas in previous ages, even if you thought about it, then you would get the karma. So that's the advantage. You don't get punishment unless you actually do the activity. And on the other hand, if you think of doing a good activity, then you get a nice punya for it. And in other ages, you had to do the activity, like give charity or help people or whatever like that. Then you get nice effects. But Kali Yuga, you just think about it and you get some good effect. So there was some advantage there in Kali Yuga. Of course, this is in terms of papa and punya, an advantage in Kali Yuga. That's not actually what the devotee is so much interested in, but of course we can say it's a secondary thing. If we can at least prevent the people from doing sinful activities, that's good for them, even if they're thinking about them, if they don't do them. And if they can actually have some good attitude in their mind, even if they don't even do anything, that's also good. But more than that is the other advantage in Kali Yuga, and that is Nam Sankirtan. So that is the most advantageous thing in Kali Yuga. Again, in the Shashashtaka, the second verse says that the name is so powerful that it is not restricted by any rules. You don't have to follow rules for it. Whereas most sadhanas, most spiritual practices, you need rules. If you're going to do yoga, there are rules to follow. So we have the Astanga Yoga, Yama and Niyama. These are the rules you have to follow. Sense control, brahmacharya, worship of the Lord, no hoarding things, etc. These are the basic rules to start the process of yoga. And then when you do it, then there are certain rules of cleanliness and sitting in the forest and whatever, having a septic environment. There's all rules for yoga. For jnana, of course, again, rules. Only brahmanas can study the Upanishads. They have to be clean. They have to, go through a whole practice and meditation, whatever. To do karma yoga, again, many, many rules. Bhakti, no rules. And Harinam, even less rules. In deity worship, we do have rules. But in Harinam, no rules. It's very interesting. It's such a process that it's free of all rules. Deity worship, you have to be clean. You have to take a bath. You have to have clean cloth, whatever. You have to have diksha. So we can't say everybody do deity worship in Kali Yuga. They're not qualified for it. But Harinam, everyone, chant. Yeah, of course, we say don't preach to the faithless people, so they can hear the name still. No, even they can hear the name, even if they're demons and sinful or whatever. Yeah? And if they're neutral, of course, then we can even start preaching to them. Yeah? So there's no rules required. You could be clean, unclean, sinful, not sinful, Brahman, non-Brahmana, Varnashrama, no Varnashrama, old person, young person, student, working persons, sannyasi, whatever. All varnas, all ashrams, inside ashrams, outside ashrams, no ashram, no varna, man, woman, child. Everybody can follow it. In fact, we go to extremes, and even in the womb you can practice bhakti, as in the case of Prahlad. You heard in the womb. And you can get perfection at any stage, or at the end of life you can get, as in the case of Ajamil or whatever like that. And even if it's accidental, the name has effect, as in the case of Ajamil also. It doesn't have to be intentional. So we get all sorts of stories, instances like that to show the power of bhakti, and particularly the chanting of the holy name. So in Kali Yuga, not only bhakti, but the chanting of the name is considered to be the solution to everything. So that's the outstanding quality, apart from this idea that if you just think of the sinful activity, you don't get the effect, and if you think of the pious act, you get an effect. If you somehow contact the name, that can destroy all your karmas. If you accidentally chant the name of Krishna, that destroys all your karmas. So it can purify you very quickly. And if you chant intentionally, then you get much greater effect. You develop bhakti, and you can get to prema. So Parikshit Maharaj understood this very well. Here it says he was, interesting word here, saragam and sarabuk. So sara means essence, taking the essential element out of something. So the saranga is literally means, ga means to go, sara means the essence. Go to the essence. So in common language, it's the bee. He goes to the nectar of the flower, doesn't worry about the petals. He goes and drinks the nectar, pulls the nectar out of the flower. So he's saranga. There's another saranga also, that's the swan. So the swan also is famous for, when there's milk mixed with the water, the swan can pull out the milk out of the water, which we can't do. Somehow he can get the milk out of the water. So he is gathering the essence out of the water, and the bee is getting the essence out of the flower. So these are examples of saranga, those who gather the essence. So Parikshit was also considered to be like that, gathering the essence. Of course, the nectar of the flower or the milk in the water is material. So the real essence is spiritual life, and ultimately Krishna. So if it's the devotee and a person like Parikshit who has the vision to see the material world and to gather the essence out of that, to understand what is the will of Krishna and everything in the material world, and try to engage everything for Krishna in the material world. Somehow to see everything in relation to that. So consequently, he saw the age of Kali. He saw all the sinful people and what of that. As far as he was concerned, he could keep them out when he was alive. He knew that after he disappeared, it would get worse. But he never had any hatred, because he understood the sara, the essence. He understood the essence of everything is to take to bhakti, to take to Krishna consciousness, to chant the holy name. And that's the saving grace for all the people in Kali Yuga, including all the demons. When Kali Yuga influences everybody, the solution is simply that. And he understood this was the will of the Lord also. So, very, very appropriate device is used here, poetic device to praise and glorify Parikshit Maharaj as being the gatherer of the essence. So, all devotees also should be essence gatherers, like the bees. They should look for the essence in everything, and not look for the faults and the problems in the material world. So somehow we try to find the mercy of Krishna everywhere within everything. So the advice given in Bhagavatam is that in difficult circumstances, then the devotee understands that all of the difficulties caused are self-created, that is karma. He's getting all his difficulties concerning circumstances and body and family and whatever. It's all his karma. But he's not bitter about that because he understands he is the cause of his own suffering. On the other hand, not disturbed by that, he takes it as the mercy of the Lord, as a chance to continue his devotional service. And he does that devotional service. He continues in spite of all the difficulties caused by his own karmas, etc. And the result of that is he gets the mercy of the Lord. The Lord's merciful because of his toleration of the material world and all of its problems, and his understanding that the real goal is surrender to the Lord and serving the Lord. And the Lord admires that quality in the devotee, and therefore he gives him great mercy, and he can advance very quickly. So the devotees are also realists or gatherers of the essence. They see the real nature of what is the material world and what is necessary to solve all the problems. Bhaktivinoda Thakur contrasts this with the opposite. The Saragrahis, they accept the essence. That's the devotees. And the opposite is the Bharavahis, those that carry burdens. So they are attached to everything in the material world, and they create burdens for themselves. And this is like the donkey. The donkey is carrying a big load. Then he just keeps carrying the load because it's put on him like this. So this is the nature of people in the material world. They're carrying these heavy loads of responsibilities, karma, attachments to material things, activities, etc., to get certain material results. All this is all carrying heavy loads. So that's the opposite. Absorption in material goals. And the devotees interested in spiritual goals. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes a little bit of a warning also that the devotee should not get distracted, because even within devotional service he can get distracted by the externals and not concentrate on the actual development of bhakti. So he says you can get attracted to the externals like the tilak or the dress or the whatever, even the doctrine or whatever like that. We get too attached to it. And then we start fighting with everybody else. You're not wearing the same tilak, you're not wearing the same sikha, you're not wearing the same dress, you don't have the same philosophy like that, and you attack other people. So that can be, we could say, sectarian or fanatical or divisive. It can lead to a lot of problems. So the devotee, says the advanced devotee, the mature devotee, is not interested in arguing with people. He's only interested in cultivating bhakti, and if somehow we can get people to do that, fine. Don't worry about the external so much. And concentrate on encouraging people to somehow develop bhakti and surrender to the Supreme Lord. The devotees should understand that though we don't disregard the externals, at the same time we also understand the internal nature is the important thing, and we take the externals as favorable for that. But we don't just argue over the external things. So, therefore, the devotee should also be like the bees and try to take the essence out of everything in relation to devotional service itself and in relation to the world. Okay. Any question?
So Marge, it mentions that Marge Krishna didn't envy or hate Kali. So what does it actually mean by envy? Like, why would he not be envious of Kali? Like, you know, a person, someone who envious of got something that you want, or they're happy and you're not, sort of thing. I'm trying to understand how Marge Krishna might be envious, or may have been envious of Kali.
Well, I suppose if he were a materialist, then he may be envious that Kali's going to get a lot of enjoyment. I won't get that same type of sinful activity enjoyment, I suppose. But anudveshti can just simply mean hatred also. He had no hatred or animosity towards him. He didn't take him as an enemy. I think that's the main meaning there. Rather than seeing that he had something wonderful because he didn't have anything wonderful, he was an imposter anyway.
And also you mentioned by practicing bhakti automatically screen anger, etc. dissipates.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see perhaps a person's been practicing even for a long time and there's still you know, some sort of unwanted activities going on. So I know Krishna, he doesn't interfere with one's free will, but even one may be thinking that I don't want to be doing this, but somehow or other it keeps coming up. So what's actually going on there?
So these are all anartas. We have different types of anartas. We can call them samskaras, which means impressions that we've developed a certain habit, mental habit or whatever, which causes certain reactions in this world. And it may be from previous life. We developed that, and it may be for many lifetimes we developed the same habit and it's going on in this lifetime. Or it could be in this life itself. It may be developed. And usually that's developed in childhood. They say actually in your first 6 months, that's what fixes your character in this material world concerning your relationship with the world. You hate it, you like it, or whatever like that. You have your attitude towards everybody in the world is determined by your first 6 months in this life. Of course, that's not completely true, but that's a psychological thing. So anyway, we have this life experiences and previous life experiences, and all that is stuck in your subtle body there, and the prominent things are going to start affecting you in this lifetime. So we know that bhakti destroys karmas, which is the effect of our desires. It also destroys the pap bija, that is all these desires and anartas and desire, anger, hatred, greed, etc., which are in the mind. And it also destroys the cause of that, which is ignorance. So ignorance is the ultimate thing, aversion to Krishna. That's the ultimate cause. And then from that we get a body and identify with the body. Then we develop all these things which are stuck in our subtle body for lifetimes. So bhakti destroys them all, but usually it happens in a gradual way. If you have no aparads from previous lifetimes and this lifetime, then it's very quick. As in the case of Ajamil, he simply chanted the holy name and all of his karmas, past, present, future, disappeared. So that was the karmas. To get rid of the desires and the anartas and then the ahankara takes a little bit longer. And if you've got aparads behind you, that's going to take longer also. So therefore some devotees will progress and they advance quite quickly and develop all nice qualities. Others may show some anartas as they're going on also, and it's very difficult for them to get rid of it. So part, of course, as we say, from last life or this life, plus perhaps the aparads, which slows down that whole process. So therefore they'll manifest some bad qualities.
So I think it was mentioned in Krishna or probably elsewhere that whatever material desires you had in your previous life, in this life, Super Soul reminds you what you were doing, and you sort of take up that activity. So would that be also like, if you're like sinful desires from previous life, Super Soul is reminding, or is that just a result of anatta which comes with the
Well, we can say super soul's involved, of course your subtle body's involved, and whatever you think of when you die, you attain. So whatever you accumulate in terms of your desires, what's strong at that point is going to start pushing you in your next body. So you aspire for that job, or you aspire for this position, or you aspire to be like this, or you become attached to this type of enjoyment. So obviously it's coming from previous lifetime. And of course, Paramatma is involved, and your desires themselves are there. So the Lord simply helps you implement your desires.
That's a combination.
Yeah.
I was wondering how we can share Krishna consciousness with materialistic people without making this offense of preaching to the faithless.
Yeah. So, you can expose them without preaching to them. So in other words, you can show them a picture of Krishna, you can let them hear the holy name, you can give them prasadam, and you don't have to tell them, oh, this is sacred food coming from Krishna, it's nice food, eat it, like this. So we can accidentally engage them, or not accidentally, without their knowing about it. We can somehow expose them to Krishna consciousness. And if you do that enough, then eventually the Atma gets affected by that. So prasadam is very effective, even though it's only, they think of taste like this. It actually affects the jiva. So the jiva gets a little bit of inclination to the Lord each time he gets prasadam. And eventually he gets a little more inclination and less aversion and more attraction until finally it turns into faith. And then he has a conviction in the Lord. But it may take a long time in some cases where they're completely, demons or whatever.
So
But
if you're working with someone every day,
Yeah.
what sort of topics, like are you allowed to talk about? Like you're allowed to talk about general Atma-jnana, like if you're sitting in a truck talking to your fellow worker,
Okay.
and they've got some questions, and there's some level of faith,
Okay.
you're not going to tell them the holy name is going to
Yeah.
destroy all their sins. But where do you start?
Well, you can start with the law of karma. They may accept that. That if you do good activities, you get good results. You do bad activities, you do bad results. You can talk about gunas. You associate with, tamasic things, you're going to end up in a real confused state. You do sattvic things, and you end up in a very clear state and peaceful. Yeah? People are interested in getting rid of stress. So basically, the more tamasic, the more stress. The more sattvic, the less stress. So you can approach them indirectly that way.
I just found that a lot of the time, because I associate with materials a lot,
Yeah,
running
yeah.
business,
Yeah.
it's like you just find that you never get a chance to talk about Krishna.
Yeah.
You want to avoid that thing.
Yeah.
Then you find you're always talking about things separate from Krishna.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a
Yeah.
truck for 2 hours driving to a place
Yeah.
and then you talk about emotions, pure nature, Krishna doesn't come up in the conversation.
Yeah. Well, it's a gradual process for them. Yeah? If they ask a good question, fine, then you get the opportunity. If they don't, at least even association with a devotee, even if they don't know it, is good. That's the mercy. That's the first mercy. They just somehow contact a devotee or see a devotee. They don't even know he's a devotee. That's also good for them. Because that, one jiva influences another jiva a little bit. Even if they don't know, they get an influence on them and they become a little favorable because of that.
You mentioned that when we sincerely practice devotional service, then we don't have to cultivate the good qualities, they automatically appear. At the same time, we hear that devotional service is cultivation. And you mentioned about essence seekers. So we hear that we need to see the good qualities and take the essence, but we also notice things that are not so good. So how do we become essence seekers and not be affected by the external, maybe something not being done properly or
Well, we can say the prominent should be that cultivation of the relationship with Krishna. This Krishnanaseelanam, Anukulyana Krishnanaseelanam. That should be the prominent in our mind. And then everything, we try to relate everything to that. So if we see some bad qualities, then somehow we try to relate that to us. If we want to, in terms of association, we may not want to associate with a person because of those particular qualities or whatever. In terms of compassion, then we may want to try to help them and correct them in some way. Then we have to think of somehow how to do that also in a proper way, according to their, qualification, whether they have faith, or they don't have faith, or they have a little faith, or they got mixed faith, or whatever. So it takes a little bit of intelligence, spiritual intelligence also. So it is said that the person who comes to the Madhyama level has proper intelligence. So he can actually begin to distinguish the different levels of people, and then he knows how to appropriately deal with different types of people, because he can distinguish what level their faith is or whether they don't have faith. So then he can deal with the people accordingly. So it requires some intelligence and introspection on our part also.
service is actually performed in our mind or externally?
Oh, it's done both.
Both?
Yeah, the definition of sadhana is engagement of the senses and the mind, kriti sadhya, in order to get bhava, which is we can say the atma, manifesting its love for Krishna in terms of shantadasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya, sthayi bhava. But it's done through the mind and the senses. However, it's not just action as such. It has to be anukulena Krishna Nasivanam, cultivating the relationship through the action of the senses and the mind, but favorable. So in other words, we start with shraddha in the atma. This leads to favorable actions towards the Lord. So along with the action, we have to have that favorable attitude towards Krishna. I'm trying to establish a loving relationship with Krishna. So that's coming from the atma. So there's a combination of the mind and the senses plus the atma. And if we take out that atma, then it's just actions without any meaning.
So if it's only some actions performed in our mind, is it that you worship? It's like
Oh, yeah, no.
What is mentioned in this group?
No, you can do in the mind. You can do the actions. We have manasa puja. You can think of worshiping Krishna in the mind and offer golden pots of water and huge plates of nice foods in your mind if you don't have anything. And it's equal. Krishna accepts that.
To what degree is that equal to if we actually perform that?
Yeah,
Or
same.
just in our mind.
Same.
So we can make donations in our
So
mind.
you can do your puja in your mind. That's manasa puja. And this is the story of the Brahmana who heard the story that that if you don't have anything, worship in the mind. So he was a poor Brahmana. So he just offered everything to a shalagram shila in his mind. And he got to the sweet rice and he started cooking sweet rice in his mind and he cooked it and then he was going to offer it, but then his finger went into it and it burned his finger. And then he went out of his trance and he saw his finger was burned. And he couldn't offer anything because he came out of his trance. But then, as a result of his devotion, Vishnu took him to Vaikuntha.
So what if one is actually performing, let's say, which can be deities, but thinking about something else? Is that considered to be devotional service or not?
When we're worshiping the deity, think, well, it's just like chanting, inattentive chanting. So inattentive deity worship, same. It's not so effective, but because our intention is to please the Lord, but we have restless minds, therefore, at least it's not, we don't have to suffer too much from it, but we try to be as attentive as possible in all these things. So that's why they do have all these rules for deity worship, cleanliness, and this and that, and different rules. That's to fix the mind, actually. And actually, manasa puja is part of the procedure. So you fix your mind. This is not just some material activity. So by doing it internally, we emphasize the devotional aspect of it.
Just on that note of manasa seva, so if you're a multi-millionaire and you give $1 million in your mind, is that as good as giving $1 million?
Well, you can do both. So it's not that if you have the opportunity to physically do something, but you're too lazy to do that, so you only want to do it in your mind, then that's just avoiding the act itself. So in the case of the Brahmana, he didn't have anything, so he did it in the mind. So nevertheless, if you do it all externally with no mental thought at all, you're just doing the activity and worshiping Krishna, you're not even thinking of Krishna, then that's also not good. So some mental thing has to be there, but then you can also do it completely with the mind also if it's full with devotion. It does have effect. So Krishna is ultimately not interested in money or material things at all, actually. It's the devotion. So whether you do it externally or internally doesn't matter. But if the person who's wealthy is just avoiding spending his money and tries to do internal worship, then it's not really devotional also. And even if he gives money externally also, if he doesn't do it with the devotion, then it's not, so we don't call it bhakti either. So the attitude is very important in either case.
We hear in the nature of devotion that when one comes to the temple, one should bring an offering do some service. So I observed, like even when I was in another temple in another country, and here that culture of giving is not so much there anymore. It's just about coming to the temple and taking sometimes, instead of having that culture of even picking a few flowers from the garden or some vegetable, or even just doing some menial service like serving on prasadam. Maybe not so now because of COVID, but how do we bring back that culture that the temple is not just to hang out or just have free prasadam, but to come and offer service? And everyone has some capacity, even just to pick one flower from the garden and
Of course.
offer it for the aarti. So
Yeah. Well, people are on different levels, obviously, and for some people, it's simply if they take prasadam is good. So that's the service also. But then we expect people should do, more advanced devotees will do more than simply eat prasadam. So we try to encourage everybody, but obviously, even if they don't, at least if they take prasadam, it's good for them. So, there's some advantage, even if they can't do any other service, they can do that, that's okay. And we recognize they're at a certain level. But if they can do more and we encourage them, fine, they can advance nicely. So in other words, it's to their advantage to take advice from devotees and engage in more types of service. But if they can't do that, then what can we do? We can't force them. But still, it's good for them. Okay, Hare Krishna.